Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what we have for you this Tuesday. The roots of radicalism behind the Bondi Beach murders.
Who exactly were these two individuals from Australia interacting with there?
Plus, stepped up security in Canada and a serious warning.
Within seconds, there were 15 agents surrounding the car.
Why Canadians are being cautioned about heading to the U.S.
Unfortunately, another example of disingenuous reporting.
And White House secrets exposed by Donald Trump's right-hand woman.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
And we begin with breaking news from Skate Canada, the organization announcing today that it is cancelling and will no longer host national and international events in Alberta. It's in response to the province's gender law. CTV's Rachel Aiello is on the story for us today. Okay, Rachel, how did figure skating's governing body come to this conclusion?
Yeah, hey Sandy. So Skate Canada confirmed to us this afternoon that after considering a range of factors, it's made this decision, saying in a statement that following a careful assessment of Alberta's Fairness and Safety in Sport Act, Skate Canada has determined that we are unable to host events in the province while maintaining our national standards for safe and inclusive sport, and says they will continue to monitor legislative developments in the province and will reassess hosting opportunities as circumstances evolve. Now, Sandy, key in Skate Canada's statement here is confirming that this would not affect the ability of Alberta skaters from participating in Skate Canada programming going forward. And the law cited as the rationale for this decision, Sandy, of course, is one of a trio of new pieces of legislation passed by the Alberta government targeting, affecting specifically the trans community. This specific policy restricts transgender athletes ages 12 and older from participating in female amateur sports. Now, there are no upcoming Skate Canada events that this decision will directly impact. Right. When they passed this law, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said that it was about fairness. LGBTQ2S+ community members say that it is harmful. We've reached out to the Premier's office for comment. Sandy?
Okay, Rachel, thank you so much for this. Okay, officials are stepping up security at Hanukkah events in Canada with a warning from intelligence officials that after the massacre on Bondi Beach, other Jewish gatherings remain vulnerable to attack. And today we learned more about the two suspects in Australia who murdered 15 people in cold blood. CTV's Judy Trin now on the gunmen and their connection to ISIS, an avowed terror group. Judy.
Sandy, I'm at a menorah lighting on Parliament Hill where members of Ottawa's Jewish community is gathering in defiance of growing anti-Semitism. What we are learning today from Australian authorities is that the Bondi Beach attackers were inspired by ISIS. Before the mass shooting began, dashcam video reveals how a couple confronted one of the Bondi Beach attackers. They tried to wrestle away his gun. Boris Gurman and his wife Sophia were among the 15 people killed.
It would appear that there is evidence that this was inspired by a terrorist organisation, by ISIS.
Homemade Islamic State flags were visible in the suspect's car. Authorities also found improvised explosive devices in the vehicle. 50-year-old Sajid Akram was killed by police. His 24-year-old son was also shot and in hospital. Police say father and son traveled to the Philippines in November and are trying to find out why.
Specifically, who were they interacting with in Mindanao, which is known to be an ISIS stronghold? In fact, ISIS had tried to carve out an independent state there some years ago. Still known to be active, still doing training there. Who exactly were these two individuals from Australia interacting with there?
The Akram's home in a Sydney suburb was searched. Police said the father, Sajid, had licenses for 6 firearms. Australian media is reporting that his son, Naveed, was investigated in 2019 for ties to an ISIS cell, but deemed a non-threat. Meanwhile, a menorah lights up Sydney's Opera House as grief grows at a memorial on Bondi Beach. 2 rabbis and a Holocaust survivor are among the dead. The youngest victim was a 10-year-old girl named Matilda.
Matilda's mother called me and say, Matilda died. And I couldn't even repeat this word at the time. I say, what? What? I asked him many times. I was thinking it's bad reception. I don't hear something well. And after I start screaming.
An unclassified intelligence report by Canadian authorities found that there is no credible threat to Jewish holiday events in Canada. However, that same report said that it is possible that a violent act could be committed by lone actors. Sandy.
CTV's Judy Trin in Ottawa. Judy, thank you. Some immigration experts are warning Canadians not to go to the United States unless they absolutely have to. It follows an uptick in visitors being detained or arrested by ICE agents because of changes to U.S. immigration policies. CTV's Heather Wright spoke to a Canadian who was stopped by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Hey, Heather.
Well, Sandy, the man I spoke with was released after a few hours, but he describes the situation as scary and is worried it could happen again.
This is North America's busiest border crossing, the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Windsor and Detroit. It's where Greg Williams was detained by U.S. Border Patrol last month as he tried to enter the United States with his wife and dad.
And then it was turn the car off, hands on the dash, and within seconds, there were 15 agents surrounding the car.
Williams says he was handcuffed and taken into a small room inside the nearby building. He was photographed and fingerprinted before ever knowing why he was being detained.
I wasn't worrying about being sent to some, Ecuadorian supermax, which is very much white privilege of me, that it's like, I don't have to worry about those things, but that's also like, nobody should.
Turns out there's another Greg Williams with some sort of a record that prompted the detention of this Greg Williams, an Ontario musician.
This happened because I have the same name, and that's crazy.
Williams was released after a couple of hours, but his story highlights the growing number of Canadians being caught up in the immigration crackdown underway south of the border. More than 200 Canadians have spent time in ICE custody at some point since January, compared with 137 detained in 2024. Records show at least 6 children were among those detained. While a handful of Canadians had felony convictions or other criminal records, the vast majority were picked up for visa violations or less serious infractions, which experts say marks a major shift in policy.
For the most part, from what I've seen, we're looking at very minor criminal infractions, but sufficient to attract the radar of U.S. enforcement.
Experts say in the past, Canadians would have been denied entry into the United States or sent back to Canada, but are being detained more frequently. Sandy.
Okay, CTV's Heather Wright in Toronto. Stunning revelations about Donald Trump today and those within his inner circle in what's being called a blockbuster Vanity Fair expose. The source of the magazine piece, Donald Trump's influential chief of staff, Susie Wiles, who gets candid about her boss and others. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon now on the article and Wiles' reaction to it. Joy.
Sandy, it's a jaw-dropper that has tongues wagging in Washington, offering an unfiltered, incredible insight into Trump world.
The ice baby. We call her the ice baby.
She shuns the spotlight, but Susie Wiles is one of the most powerful voices in Donald Trump's White House. As chief of staff, spilling secrets to Vanity Fair, she described her boss, who doesn't drink, as having an alcoholic's personality. He operates with a view that there's nothing he can't do. And of Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance, Wiles labels him a conspiracy theorist for a decade, whose conversion to MAGA world was sort of political and driven by ambition.
I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true.
Of Elon Musk, Trump's billionaire on-again, off-again friend whose Doge government cuts wreaked havoc, Wiles says he's an avowed ketamine user, and he sleeps in a sleeping bag in the executive office in the daytime. Wiles admits she underestimated the Epstein scandal, how much it meant to Trump supporters demanding the truth about the late convicted sex offender. Taking a swing at Attorney General Pam Bondi, Wiles says, I think she completely whiffed on appreciating that that was the very targeted group that cared about this. She gave them binders full of nothingness. Wiles admits Trump is in the files and flew on Epstein's plane, but he's not doing anything awful, Wiles says. They were, sort of young single playboys together. And Wiles contradicts the White House claim about the drug boat strikes, suggesting it's also about regime change and forcing Nicolas Maduro out. Trump wants to keep on blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle.
After giving the magazine 11 interviews, Wiles blasted Vanity Fair, calling it a disingenuous hit piece on her and the president. Still, a fascinating peek behind the curtain. Sandy?
For sure. CTV's Joy Malvin in Washington. Thank you, Joy. Prosecutors in Los Angeles have formally announced the charges against Nick Reiner in connection with the killing of his parents, director Rob Reiner and wife Michelle.
These charges will be 2 counts of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of multiple murders. He also faces a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, that being a knife. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
He was arrested in a public area, in the Exposition Park area near the University of Southern California campus. He was approached by the officers and he was arrested without incident. There were no indications that he was going to resist or anything like that. He didn't flee or anything like that. He was taken into custody without issue.
Now, Reiner has not appeared in court yet to face charges in the murder of his parents, and here's the explanation from his lawyer.
Every single inmate goes through a medical clearance before they can be transported to court. Every one of them. Okay. And that's a process. It's just a procedural issue. And he has not yet been medically cleared. So we will be here hopefully tomorrow.
Nick Reiner, who has a long history of battling addiction, was arrested on Monday and booked on suspicion of murder after his parents were found dead at their LA area home. Rob Reiner was an Emmy-winning actor who later became an A-list director with a series of Hollywood blockbusters. Well, a critical weather watch is underway on BC's southwest coast again, with potentially damaging conditions. Wind, rain, and landslide warnings have millions on alert in the aftermath of severe flooding in the Fraser Valley. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson is here to break down the risks of the incoming downpour. Whoa, Andrew.
Sandy, rivers like this one in North Vancouver are being watched very closely ahead of the arrival of a new system packing a lot of rain and a lot of wind. A rain warning is calling for up to 70 millimeters to fall in this region by tomorrow morning. BC's River Forecast Centre has a flood warning also in place for Vancouver's North Shore mountains. Rivers are moving fast and banks are unstable.
Our engineers have really been tracking kind of hour by hour how the storm is unfolding, and our crews are all out in the field so that we can quickly respond if things do arise.
In the Fraser Valley, winds are being blamed for the death of a mother of 2. Police say the 28-year-old was hit by a falling tree yesterday in a Chilliwack park. Weakened trees are also hitting power lines. Thousands woke up today in the dark.
What exacerbates any wind event we have is the saturated ground. I mean, it's been raining. We've been drenched for the past number of days with more rain expected. The ground's a lot softer, a lot easier for trees to essentially walk out of the ground when the wind hits.
A wind warning is now in effect for Metro Vancouver and Vancouver Island, where gusts could hit 100 kilometers per hour. This all comes as dozens of people in Abbotsford are still out of their homes. An evacuation order still in effect after the brutal flooding late last week that left farms and neighborhoods underwater. It has been a wild weather week on BC's south coast, where people will now hope to ride out tonight's blast without major damage, then take advantage of a break to continue the cleanup. Sandy.
That's quite the river behind you. All right, Andrew, thank you. Coming up, Canadians blocked at the border.
We felt like criminals.
Why the group, including multiple MPs, was barred from crossing over. A delegation of 30 Canadians, including 6 members of parliament, were barred by Israeli border authorities from entering the West Bank today from Jordan. The group says it had planned to meet with Palestinians in the occupied territory. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver is tracking that story. And Annie, who is part of that group and why were they denied entry?
Sandy, the group of Canadians included leaders from various charities and NGOs, as well as 6 members of parliament. And the group says they're still not sure why they were turned away. It was here at the Allenby crossing that the Canadian delegation waited for hours, only to be told by Israeli border agents they could not enter the occupied West Bank.
We actually felt like criminals at the border, as if we are coming here to actually commit a crime.
The delegation, organized by the nonprofit, the Canadian Muslim Vote, intended to spend 3 days talking to refugees, aid groups, along with Muslim, Jewish, and Christian individuals in the West Bank. Instead, 30 people, including 6 MPs, 1 NDP, and 5 Liberals, were turned around, with one MP claiming she was pushed.
Frankly, I think it's insulting. I really do.
Liberal Faraz Al-Soud says he expected pushback, but never expected many in the group would be told to sign paperwork deeming them a risk to public safety and security.
They only gave us this very vague terminology of public security or public safety or public order considerations. And when we pried just a slight bit, they pushed back significantly, making it clear that they did not need to provide any reasoning.
The group has no intention on trying to cross again and says this rejection is part of a pattern by the Israeli government.
There's been a recent pattern of UN employees, of journalists, of humanitarians, and also parliamentarians from other countries, including the United Kingdom, that have been refused entry.
Israel's embassy to Canada says the delegation was denied entry because organizers have links to Islamic Relief Worldwide, which Israel considers a terror entity due to its alleged ties to Hamas. Ties the aid group, Sandy, has denied.
CTV's Annie Bershon Oliver. A British man who drove into a crowd of celebrating soccer fans in May, injuring more than 130 people, has been sentenced to more than 21 years in prison. Prosecutors say 54-year-old Paul Doyle plowed into the crowd simply because he lost his temper. Supporters were celebrating Liverpool's Premier League title at the team's victory parade. Last month, Doyle pleaded guilty to 31 charges. The judge said his disregard for human life defies ordinary understanding. Russia bombarded Ukraine's southern Odessa region overnight, launching dozens of drones and causing a massive fire at an industrial site. The fire broke out at a warehouse storing household appliances. No casualties were reported. The attacks knocked out power for more than 280,000 homes. This as the Ukrainian leader was in the Netherlands today, meeting with the Dutch king. Volodymyr Zelensky also met with the country's prime minister, where he said Ukraine is facing financial difficulties and it's crucial the European Union uses frozen Russian assets to support Kyiv. And a new subway stop at Rome's historic Coliseum has finally opened after long delays. And it's not just any transit stop. The museum-like station has 4 underground levels where riders and tourists can view archaeological treasures that were discovered during construction. Visitors will ascend through layers of the city's history, including ancient walls and wells, before catching a glimpse of the iconic Coliseum. Sounds wonderful. The federal government is announcing new regulations to cut methane emissions from the oil and gas sector.
These new enhanced oil and gas regulations are designed to significantly cut methane emissions by over 304 megatons from 2028 to 2040.
The environment minister says new landfill regulations will also cut 100 megatons of emission by 2040. The government also announced nearly $16 million in investment for 9 methane detection and measurement projects across Canada. A fire that burned in 2 Toronto condo buildings for nearly 17 days is finally out, but no word yet on when people can go home.
Throughout this response, our top priority has been the safety of residents. Again, we recognize how difficult this situation has been, especially the time away from their homes.
Toronto's fire chief says multiple innovative methods were deployed to end the fire, which burned in between the walls of the condo buildings and caused substantial damage. And Canada's first WNBA team, the Toronto Tempo, has unveiled its new look before its inaugural season tips off in May.
They feature our team colors, so Tempo Bordeaux and Borealis Blue, really icy, speaks to, Canada in the north.
The team unveiled 2 jerseys after keeping the look under wraps for more than a year. The uniforms feature 6 speed lines down the side representing Toronto's 6 boroughs. One more design has yet to be released, and sales on some of those jerseys will begin in January of 2026. After the break, a new twist on an old tradition and the ornament that's surprisingly trendy this holiday season. Can you guess what it is? Nine days until Christmas, and for those of you who deck your halls with boughs of holly, you'll be interested in what holiday trends are sparking this festive season. CTV's Sarah Plowman visited a glass-blowing studio and found that Christmas pickle ornaments are a big deal this year. Really, Sarah?
Sandy, these pickle ornaments have been so popular that this year the studio made a variation.
Ornaments can hold meaning, spark memories or thoughts of loved ones. Behind each one made here is Curtis Dion, a master glass blower.
It's kind of a lost art. There's very few people doing it in Canada.
The holidays bring in a lot of orders. He sometimes crafts more than 100 ornaments a day.
We do the hummingbird, the dragonfly, the bumblebee. We do a mushroom. We do a pickle.
Each demands precision and practice. Like dipping a spoon into a pot of honey, Dion dips a blowpipe into a furnace of molten glass, twirls it, and rolls it in color.
And then we're going to hold it upwards and compress a little bit of air into the pipe so that a bubble starts to emerge.
Like a dance, Dion and his assistant move quickly. Owen Steele has perfected the last touch, the hook.
And while I'm doing it, I'm also sort of in that meditative, almost Zen state.
In high demand this year is the pickle.
I'm giving it as a gift.
That comes with a game of hide and seek.
Whoever hides the pickle has a special gift, and whoever finds the pickle receives the gift.
Each ornament is a chance to share a piece of his passion and connect to the community.
I think the ornaments that people put on their trees become part of like a lasting memory, you know, part of their tradition, and it gives us the opportunity to become a bit of a household name.
And each family has a different way of doing this pickle game. For some, whoever finds the pickle gets to open the first gift. For others, they get good fortune. But either way, a lot of families will be looking closely at their tree this year. Sandy.
What a revelation. Okay, Sarah, CTV's Sarah Plowman. Thanks, Sarah. And thank you for sharing your time with us. Now, a reminder that you can stream this newscast live on Crave. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Goodbye for now. Be well. Stay safe. See you soon.